welcome to a very special in-person recording of the Plan C podcast. We're here at the Ocean Sciences meeting, or OSM as we'll probably call it throughout the episode, in Glasgow, Scotland. I am your host, Anna Madlener. I'm a senior manager for MRV at the Carbon to Sea initiative. And once again, I am joined by my wonderful colleague, Danny Galowski, who is our senior manager for communications, who is filling in for my fabulous co-host, Will Burns, today. Thank you for being here, Danny. And do you want to share a bit about what we're here to talk about?
Yeah, well, first of all, it is great to be here. And it is a very special episode because it's covering one of the topics that I really care about, science communications. And so we're here because this weekend, in the days leading up to the Ocean Sciences meeting in wonderful Glasgow, we had a gathering of the mCDR Communication Leaders Cohort, who had the first time together in person for a weekend of lessons and direct training around science communications. It's a really fabulous program. It's run by Compass, a fabulous group that works on increasing the impact of science through training strategic, thoughtful communication leaders. And so, this weekend follows months of online courses as well. And so today we're going to meet with three people who are members of that incredible cohort: Abigail, Miriam, and Cohen. Could you go ahead and start with introducing yourselves?
Hi, my name's Abigail Wyatt. I am a ocean modeler from Seaworthy, where we're a nonprofit company that's designing software to simulate mCDR.
Hi, my name is Dr. Mariam Swaleh. I live in Mombasa, Kenya, and I work at the Technical University of Mombasa, and also I head the Ocean Climate Innovation Hub, Kenya. I am a marine chemist, and we just started our research on ocean alkalinity enhancement, but my main role is usually engaging people and communicating about mCDR techniques.
Hello, thanks for having me. My name's Cohen Bauer, and I serve as the science director at Ocean Networks Canada, based in Victoria, BC, Canada. We run an ocean observing facility on all three of Canada's coasts in service of science, society, and industry.
Great. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's a very busy week. Wednesday evening, we're more than halfway through. Yay. But also, sad, kind of. I want to start with some of the basics. As you alluded to, each of you have a background in science and a science-relevant application. I'm curious when and why you decided to spend time focusing on your communication skills. Like, was there a particular moment in time where you felt, you were trying to talk about your work, maybe about marine carbon dioxide removal, and you felt that you needed to improve communication skills? Anyone can start. Cohen, you look like you know it.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think communication and communicating in general is hard, and it's kind of a pursuit that you're building and learning throughout your whole life and career. And so really for me, it's even more foundational than any one moment. It's just about, personal and professional growth and continuing to build skills and learn from others. And as Danny said, the Compass Group is amazing and provided so much thoughtful training, and we got exposed and we learned from experts that they brought in across the online meetings as well as this weekend in person. And so I just feel really grateful to have been a part of it.
For me, science communication, that's my role currently in the university, as well as through the Ocean Climate Innovation Hub, has become very critical because, first of all, the university where I work at its main focus is technology, and my role is to promote research within the university. And also through the Ocean Climate Innovation Hub, I work a lot with communities, with other researchers, and we are always communicating about emerging climate technologies, either through workshops or sometimes through interviews or maybe some documentaries that we do. So you end up talking about science all the time, defining your research or explaining the work that you do. So because that's not my training, I'm trained as a chemist. Sometimes you hit stumbling blocks, you hit walls when you communicate because you're used to being in the labs, and now you have to get yourself out there and talk about what you're doing or talk about other people's work in science. So it's critical for my work, I would say. And I think the Compass communication program came at a very good time because it's when I needed it for the work that I'm doing currently. And so far, it's been great. I've got to learn a lot from the experts. And these people gave their all, their patience, their time, their knowledge, and which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, so for me, actually, science communication is where I started from. That was the reason I went into science. I come from a fairly conservative background, a small town, and a family of climate skeptics, to put it lightly. So I really entered science with the intention of trying to build bridges, communicate back to my community where I'm from, and people, that maybe didn't have as much exposure to some of the climate science. And, I really wanted to learn the science so that I could go back and help communicate it back. So doing the Compass program is sort of, like it's all coming together now. Now I've got the science under my belt. I'm doing the work, and it's time to get back to my intention, which was to take that knowledge and spread it back out and get more people on the same page so that we're all talking the same language.
Oh, that's fantastic. One of the things about this program, and I'll speak for a second and fully disclose at Carbon to Sea, where I work and Anna works, we sponsor this program, and we wanted to make sure that it represented and trained folks from all over the world. And so one of the things I'm curious about is, for you represent different corners of the globe, and I'm just kind of curious to hear about communication challenges that you see from your own perspectives, from your own places. And Abigail, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I think climate science in certain communities already has so much attached to it. The language, the background that comes with it. There's a lot of assumptions once you start talking about the climate, once you start talking about science and chemistry and earth systems. Even though a lot of that is, beyond people's full understanding. I mean, even mine, it's hard to understand the full Earth system. People hear small tidbits often and start making a lot of assumptions before you're able to explain a whole picture. And so part of, I think, the challenge of communicating science to those types of communities is trying to really get through all of the baggage that comes with climate science, that comes with earth sciences, that comes with talking about natural sciences. People have lots of things that they are attached to it, good and bad, that you need to make sure you're starting from the same page. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of commitment, takes a lot of listening. And that can be really challenging when you're an expert in a field and you really just want to go out and spread the word. And you have to take a step back and really evaluate where you're coming from. And I think that can be really quite challenging. So,
in the U.S., there are so many issues have been turned into polarizing issues. Climate is certainly one of them. How do you carry that with you as you try to communicate over a lot of climate science?
Yeah, like I said, I think the first step is trying to listen as much as you can. It is such a political environment when it comes to climate science that you honestly don't know who you're talking to and what their opinions are. And it could be a mix of things, So the first step is trying to figure out where you're coming from, build from there, and hope that you can find those pieces, those connections, so that you can kind of, have a conversation and exchange some knowledge back and forth. But it's definitely a challenge, and it's one that I'm excited that we're getting tools to tackle here with the Compass program. So
So for me, I think it's more of the language. Language changed when climate science came. Terms that we normally used, that we were used to, had to change, and the people we work with most of the time, they don't speak English, so having to translate that to a language that is local, sometimes that becomes a challenge, because you're communicating, I would say, complex things, and then you have to translate, break them down into simpler words, and then translate it sometimes to the local language. So sometimes that becomes a challenge. And the good thing, I'll say, because we work with mostly coastal communities, and people understand. Like people know what's going on when it comes to climate change. They understand. They see the impacts or the differences that are occurring in the environment. For example, the fisher communities will tell you about low fish stocks, or people will complain about the weather, changing weather patterns, but will not necessarily connect it to, climate change. But now there's been that change in the way people understand climate change, because of now the language that is being used currently. It's become a very common term, climate change, and people are now connecting the changes they see in the environment with that. But now when it comes to the science, there's now something different, because you need to explain to other researchers or other people in the community that, for example, you have to talk about mCDR or ocean alkalinity enhancement. Those are still new technologies, I would say emerging technologies that have not yet been fully explored in our countries. So it becomes a little challenging, because there's that some people will, because of not understanding, for example, what ocean alkalinity enhancement is, they will have that fear of maybe it's something bad, it will affect our environment. So there are those challenges, but I always say challenges are opportunities to communicate, opportunities to train, opportunities to engage people, and I'll say it's a good thing.
How well does the term climate change translate across the languages that you need to use?
Okay, it's interesting because when we were growing up, there was no specific word for climate change in Kiswahili, for example, because people will just say, they'll just talk about the weather, which is in Kiswahili is hali ya anga. Like they'll talk about the weather. Then later on, you come and hear about climate change. So people had to, you will hear the scientists or whoever came up with the word. Now it's called, there's a name for it. And it's a very complicated name also, from weather to now they say mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. We used to say hali ya anga, like how the weather, anga, but now you say mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. And if you break down those terms, they are it just means change in the patterns of the country, country, change in the patterns of the country. So it's a whole sentence. But for people who are new to this, or they don't know, it becomes difficult. But now everyone knows mabadiliko ya tabia nchi, what it is, because people have been talking about it. So yeah, it's now that change. Now we have to come up with terms for alkalinity enhancement. Yeah. And I realized the other day we don't have the terms like pH. We just say we use the word levels of hydrogen ions. So it's the same way in Kiswahili they say kiwango cha hydrogeni. So it's levels of hydrogen, because we can't say pH. Understand? So there's a lot of work, I feel, that will be done, especially for countries that do not necessarily speak English.
And so how did you decide how to translate ocean alkalinity enhancement into Swahili?
At the moment, I have not translated. I'm still working on it.
I hope this program helps.
Yeah.
Cohen, I'm curious if you want to maybe sort of bridge us into the conversation around communicating on OCDR in particular, and give us a bit of an idea maybe how you think the OCDR field in general is doing at the moment in terms of its communication, both what has maybe worked well and what needs to improve.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of growth. So I think that is important to acknowledge, right? So even in the field is growing rapidly. And it's cool to see people grow and how they're communicating the science, the leading edge science, and also how to more broadly translate this knowledge to diverse communities. As the OAE community is not just scientists. It's a much more diverse community, from coastal communities through to CDR practitioners, to policymakers, to regulators. And so the need to, communicate progress on all those fronts is a challenge. So, I also really appreciate that talking with colleagues at OSM this week that come from different sectors that think about mCDR, sharing their stories and their experiences. And that is really important to learn from others and, trade ideas about what is working and maybe what's not working. And that really is important for that transparency and to help us all move forward together. And so I really like that collaborative nature of talking about communicating at large, let's say.
And how did some of that translate to your experience in working in Canada or British Columbia in particular?
Yeah. It's a great question. So I live on the west coast of Canada, on Vancouver Island in Victoria. And so in our ocean backyard, it's the Salish Sea. And, the ocean is a shared commons, and the Salish Sea has a lot of people living and stewarding along its shores. And it's a place that a lot of people hold really important to their lives and their livelihoods. And so the concept of mCDR and the emerging technologies, it's really important to meet those different diverse communities, at least in my region, where they're at. Of course, climate change, the climate emergency is like a shared human Earth system scale thing for humanity. We're all in this together, but it also impacts people differently. And so it's really important, I think, to just meet communities and different people where they're at. And it's my job to try and figure that out, and then to communicate the science at the level that we can have a conversation, have a dialogue, and
And I guess it's also not only the changing climate that is affecting people differently, but also the interventions or solutions that we're working on will affect people differently, right? So I suppose in the Salish Sea and British Columbia is obviously one area where marine carbon removal approaches are being tested. Can you say a little bit more about how that has been perceived in the community there so far, or how you feel that you sort of transitioned from talking about climate change to climate solutions?
Yeah. So I'll say that these experiences have been accumulated, or my personal experience, I've been involved in a few community-focused workshops, both in Washington State and also in British Columbia. And these are workshops organized for community members that came from all sorts of different backgrounds to, give an introduction on mCDR and a few mCDR pathways in particular, such as OAE, or ocean alkalinity enhancement. And so I just found it really inspiring, actually, to hear a diversity of thoughts on these matters, right? Transitioning from, talking about the climate at large to talking about, how we're going to mitigate further climate change through processes and technologies like ocean alkalinity enhancement. And just getting that diversity of perspectives is the first step, right? And so, from fishermen through to First Nations and Indigenous peoples that live in British Columbia, through to researchers that are hearing this for the first time. And keeping that in mind, that even oceanographers may be hearing about OAE for the first time, and so I think you have to be ready to have those conversations, even at the entry level.
You obviously, we mentioned this a couple of times now, have been part of this program, and as one of the elements of this program, you were in a 2-day workshop this weekend. Abigail, I'm wondering if you want to share a bit more about what these last several months looked like, because it was a program that built up towards the workshop and the topics that you covered.
Sure. So, we started the program almost a year ago, 6 months, maybe somewhere in there. And we've had, I think, 3 sets of online workshops where we've gotten to know each other on Zoom, and we're talking about some of these issues. We're getting introduced to experts in communication. We got to talk with journalists, and we're all kind of put in this space where we get to think about communication from home, because they're virtual meetings, which is kind of nice. And we're also getting to know each other through these virtual meetings. But I will say it was definitely really different to see everybody in person. Definitely felt a whole nother level of effective. But through the online workshops, I think it really kind of gave us a sense of getting in that headspace and really thinking about communication skills a little bit more critically, getting that expert input, starting to craft our messaging and think of it as a critical exercise and something to practice repeatedly. So having that time and space over the last few months to do these virtual workshops, I think was a really great precursor to seeing everyone in person. Because I think once we all got together, we were kind of ready to go. I feel like the workshop was really effective this past weekend. And I do think it was largely in part due to having those opportunities beforehand to even just start getting into it and start thinking about it. And so the organizers did a really great job in that regard.
And what were in the sort of in the precursor, in the months ahead of the workshop, were there specific topics that the program was sort of separated into? Science communication overall is probably is obviously the topic, but I can imagine that there were maybe rubrics or subtopics that you got into. If anyone wanted to take that.
Yeah, we did some practical exercises that were really helpful. One called the message box, which is a tool to craft a message and identify an audience, identify the goal of what you want to say, your message, and step through organizing your thoughts. And so we practiced that in the online sessions, and then we got another opportunity this past weekend to do it again, and I'm still quite bad at it. It's good. I really like practical things like that, and so that was. I'm going to definitely apply that as I move forward.
And I think there's one exercise that I really liked was when we were asked to define some of these complex science terminologies into simpler terms, or breaking them down. So either you use a synonym or a metaphor to define or to explain these complex terms. Like, for example, ocean. Our task, I think we were in the same group with Abigail, was to break down ocean alkalinity enhancement into a very simple term so that even a small child will be able to understand. And we went around so many ideas, even examples like people dancing. But, after the brainstorming session, because we were told to avoid terms like anti-acid or like those, anything that is science-based, or using words like lowering alkaline or anti-acid. So we brainstormed, then Abigail came with an idea that was about storage. And the idea was about a parking lot. So maybe she can explain it better. So I saw she had a paper about it during the OSM. But the whole idea of saying ocean alkalinity enhancement is a form of storing carbon dioxide in the ocean really made sense. And we went further to explain how it is stored. So I found that to be very good, especially, like I said before, especially for people whose first language is not English. And you want to explain this to people who are from maybe your community or people who don't really understand the science. That was a very good exercise.
I'm really glad that you liked that. Yeah, we kind of workshopped it during the online workshop. And I put it on my poster this week. I had a little parking lot showing some cars that were carbon cars. And then they park in the parking lot. And when you do ocean alkalinity enhancement, you add spaces to the parking lot. So all the carbon that is there, but you actually just chemically create more space to park more cars.
And how did it go in the poster session? What did you hear from people?
I think it went over pretty well. Yeah, I had a comparison comparing it to DOR, direct ocean removal. And in that scenario, you're reparking cars. You move some cars out of the parking lot, you put them somewhere else, and then you have space to park more cars. And so I think it was a kind of fun comparison. We were just talking cars. I think people understood. It was a pretty simple visual to put on such a technical poster.
Can they be EVs so that we're decarbonizing society? That was a nerdy joke.
Yeah, definitely.
What other? I mean, the program went on for months, as we mentioned. What are some of the other things that stood out as sort of unexpected or surprising?
I think I'll just. Cohen is right. Like, the message box is the most difficult thing. That's, for me, that was not, it was something new. I've never done that before. And the fact that they also went ahead to bring in experts.
Do you want to say more about the role playing? You mentioned role playing. I think you did role playing.
Yeah. So, I would say one role of the experts that were brought in was to test us, I would say. I know they were there to help us, but I feel like, but also they were testing us and I'll say helping us build our communication skills and our confidence. Because I remember when I was, during the workshop, when I was talking about the message box I had, Inez, who was the expert we were working with, she told me, your message is very good, but your voice is very soft. You need to be more like, let the voice come out more louder, more, it gives you more confidence. So I actually used that when we were having a session. There was a session of role playing, and actually it was kind of nerve-wracking. Like, it was very, it was not easy. So you had to, now we've been practicing these message boxes since the online sessions, now we were put in real life scenarios, and we had to prove that we actually understood what we were taught throughout, and we can express ourselves. So the role play I had was I was speaking to a climate justice organization, and they wanted they wanted my organization to train their people on mCDR work. And so I had to explain to them why, but no. They told me to train their people on ocean-based climate solutions, and I suggested mCDR is a very good place to start, and I had to explain to them why it's important, especially for Africa, because it was an African organization. So especially for Africa, why it is important for people to understand about mCDR, and also why it's important for not just researchers but also policymakers and any other person who is involved in climate justice. So that session, actually, I did quite well.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and I applied all the things that I was taught. Obviously, there were some corrections. My advisor was very critical, but I feel like those were very positive criticisms, and I think I feel more confident because now I just don't speak for the sake of speaking. I now know, like, if I'm speaking to someone, what do I want to tell him and how do I want to say?
What roles did you guys have?
I was speaking to a fisheries representative and was asked how the modeling work I do can tell us something about the ecosystem impacts and whether they'll be safe, whether these operations will be safe if deployed in the real world. And so that was an interesting question for me as a modeler, because I work in a modeled world, a simulated world. And so I found it very challenging, actually, trying to explain the limitations of the modeling work that I do. And then actually, as we broke it out into the larger group and we had a discussion around my response, I realized that, in fact, a lot of the room also didn't know the limitations of the modeling work. And so we kind of had a big group discussion about, what are models and how do we use them for mCDR? And it kind of, for me, really opened up this like really big opportunity where I see now that, like, even just across the mCDR space, where we do have all these different actors, you have, industrial side, you have the political side, you have the communities, there is still like so much communication that needs to happen across the experts. Where it was interesting because I didn't know that until I was doing the role play, talking to a community member, the fisheries, and then it was obvious that actually all the experts in the room too, like there was some disconnect between us about what the limitations of my work and how we could apply, some of the knowledge that we have from like lab studies and in situ studies. How does that all integrate in a modeling study? There's a big gap there. So it was very enlightening, maybe not what was intended, but I definitely got a lot out of that experience, although it was also a bit stressful. I'm not got to be honest. It was really valuable, but stressful.
I'm now curious to know how Colin did.
Yeah, my mock scenario was also an interaction between a fisheries sector representative, and the context was that I was in a position of I was associated with a field trial located in in a fisheries sector, and they had questions about why that location had been selected for the ocean alkalinity enhancement field trial. And so, I would say that the conversations started off a bit spicy in the mock scenario, and so that I was, again, I think it was coming back to the initial question about being surprised. I think the surprise is related to like how realistic potentially some of these conversations that were in the mock scenarios were. And so the person that I was talking to is actually a fisherman and so very knowledgeable about these topics, and so was able to really press me about a scenario that would definitely happen in the real world. And so it was just very relevant training. And throughout the conversation, I think it ended. There were 5-minute mock conversations, by the way. And so, it feels like an hour while it's happening. But by the end of it, I was grateful to reach a commonality with my conversation partner. And it was pretty cool. Definitely a valuable experience. And I really enjoyed it. Although I agree with Abigail, it was stressful in the moment. Yeah.
You went pretty quickly from the role-playing exercise and the trainings to sitting in this room with Anna and I on this podcast. How are you doing? Are you running through? I mean, you are here in a real-world experience. Yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah, you the hosts are very pleasant people. No, it's great. Getting to know the cohort, there's just a level of comfort with each other already, and so that just feels nice.
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting to be here, but I do think that speed that you're talking about, we just got some training, and now here we are. I think that's kind of been all over the sector right now, mCDR, OCDR. It's just evolving so quickly. Things are, changing. The science is moving forward, and there is kind of this time pressure. And so I feel that even with the communication here, that let's put those skills to use. Let's start working. Let's do it now, which is great to be moving ahead, but it's also a little intimidating. You're trying to stay ahead of that curve constantly. And so I think as a communicator, that's something also that trying to keep aware of everything that's happening across the whole enterprise it's a lot. And it's changing quickly. And so that's just something that's exciting, motivating, but also a bit intimidating. Yeah, including being here.
Well, it's intimidating for me. I've never been on the video of the podcast as well. So it's going great. I think it's a really important point, though, that you raised. Sometimes you just want to sit with something, right, and let it sort of materialize and practice it a little bit. And it's. I feel like every day, every week in our line of work is another jump in the cold water sometimes. But yeah, super, super important. And I think in particular around the modeling work, I think that's an interesting example because, as you said, we talk a lot about in this community about communicating to non-mCDR experts, right? But when you explained that and when you sort of accounted how the people who know all about mCDR and are taking this training to talk about mCDR were in the room and they were like, actually, yeah, there are limitations of models that I wasn't so quite fully aware of. That just is a reminder, I think, for how much cross communication we still have to do amongst ourselves. And the models is really relevant.
And I think that's one of the things that's excited me about mCDR is that it's intersecting with so many different sectors, with the government, with industry, I'm at a nonprofit, with communities, with fisheries, and it's intersecting with all these things as science does, it always does, but it's doing it in a way that's very timely. And, we're feeling that pressure. These technologies are happening. And so I think it's stimulating communication in a new way. And it's forcing us to act across sectors in a way that I find really exciting. And I hope actually is kind of adopted more across all ocean sciences, climate sciences in general. But I love that mCDR is causing this kind of meshing of different people, and even at the workshops over the past weekend, I was honestly surprised at how many different types of people were there from different sectors, that there were fisheries, that we had journalists, that we had social scientists, that we had, modelers, we had chemists, the diversity of experience and the diversity of expertise was amazing and also I mean, speaking of surprises, like that, I hadn't quite wrapped my head around just like how many different sectors we're interacting with every day. So,
well, you went from that right into the ocean sciences meeting, which is thousands of scientists. I'm just curious how this weekend maybe shaped your perception of that. Like, did you listen to things differently? How did it change your perception of all of these poster sessions and town halls and presentations that you saw?
Well, I will say, just a little pitch out to the cohort, I was really impressed with some of the work that they all did. I watched a lot of talks, went to a lot of posters, and you can tell when people care about communication. And you can tell that there's just like a patience there and an interest there and getting their points across to, you know, diverse audiences. And I watched Cohen's talk. It was great. I thought it was really exciting, actually, to kind of look at talks and posters more critically, like through that communications lens, and to see that like it matters, that people care, and I could tell. So that was one thing that I got out of the conference.
I would say it's true. Like after that weekend, when we came to the ocean science meeting, I think I was more critical, I would say. Especially when people were doing their presentations or they were explaining their posters, or I was like, this person, why is it speaking like that? Yeah, I think I was more critical, and also for myself, when I was communicating to people, I was also careful, especially like if I want to know more about their work. I was also like, I think because I was critical, now I know like, there's a gap somewhere in the way they were communicating. So it's made me ask the right questions, especially when I went through this. I think this year there were a lot of mCDR research, especially the posters and some of the oral presentations. So like I think I would ask the right questions because I have that interest now. And apart from that, the other thing that also came to my mind was, it's not, I usually would look at just the science, not bother with the other things. So now I'm also curious to know more about the other types of research which are not necessarily lab-based. There was some very interesting work on communication or frameworks. There was some work on frameworks. Abigail said, this mCDR work is evolving, and it's no longer about the science or the research only. It's now becoming something else. It's now the policy, and communication plays a critical role because the scientists need to know how to communicate to other researchers, to policy, to community people. So that really was very clear in this OSM meeting 2026.
You mentioned that you felt that you could tell that others would benefit from communicating differently or maybe changing their perspective. And you mentioned that you then sort of changed what you asked them, which to me sounds like this program you've gone through trained you to be communication leaders. So surely there's something that you will ideally pass on to others. And that sounded like something you immediately put to use at the conference to also take others along and lead others. Do you have other examples or ideas maybe how you can pass on the knowledge that you've now gained through this program that maybe you already noticed during the conference?
Actually, this was also a surprise to me. If the other time we were speaking about surprises, is when we did future scenarios. like 2050 or 2035. I've never, like, that was my first time looking at mCDR in the future. Because we always look at mCDR now, like what's happening now, what needs to be done, we need to do this. Like that's usually my conversation when I talk about mCDR. But now, after that scenario, it was, to be honest, to some extent, it was a little bit thought-provoking, because you had to, you were told that maybe in 2035, now mCDR work is all over, and then there are these changes that are happening. Maybe communities don't get their rights, or the ocean is dying, or people are getting sick, or there's a lot of these changes. And when I normally discuss, or because we do a lot of trainings and workshops for early career professionals back home, and also for other stakeholders, but we generally just don't talk about, when someone asks about, oh, what will happen, we try to convince them that, oh, this will not happen, this will work, this. But now after that session, it really changed my perspective. And also, I also requested for those materials from the trainers that I will use them in our coming, in our workshops when I go back home, because it's a very good way to make people think, like, in case this happens, what should we do? Or what is the best approach? And that is one takeaway. Like, I'm actually taking the materials and I'm going to add them to our workshops. So we're already planning one in the next few weeks when I go back, and we'll use those materials to train. And it's also showed me that it's okay to also look at the negative, so that you can know how to address it, or how to work around it, or advise people. Yeah.
And Cohen, I wanted to also come back to you. What maybe surprised you at the rest of the conference after you've had the training now? Did it change your perspective on some of the sessions, or did you feel like you sort of had a moment like Mariam somewhere where you thought, here I would really like to apply the knowledge gained?
Yeah, I would say like most of that dialogue happens at poster sessions, which is people, you're standing next to the person presenting their work typically, and in a large, sometimes it's a crowd. And so I think a large takeaway that I took from the training is how to listen more deeply, and how to then use that listening to ask questions in a way that creates a dialogue. And so I found myself just trying to apply that at the poster sessions to, I mean, I would say maybe I was a little less critical than Marianne. I think it's also important too to like, again, communication is hard, and give people a bit of grace. But then also I could see, like, you know, in my head maybe things that I would do differently, or you know, the takeaway messages as I would, you know, walk to the next poster and think about what I just learned, or the conversation that I just had. Yeah.
I'm curious about practicing. Like, is there someone in your life that you practice your communication skills with? Are you like, let me explain OAE to you? Like, whether a pet or a family member or a friend or a neighbor?
I mean, I have a 3-year-old. At the most basic level, you know, if I can try to explain something to him, I have asked him for help on like colors. By the way, he has lots of opinions on my figures and which color maps I should use. But, you know, honestly, like my husband, my son, they do get the brunt of my practice time. You know, could you check this? Does this make sense? And really just trying to get that like really generalized audience kind of point of view, just like, does the big picture make sense? And I find that is really helpful. I kind of can't imagine not having anyone to talk to. Although I think, again, the Compass program has been really great, because I workshopped that parking lot idea, and then it was on my poster, and now I'm talking about it here. So it's provided a lot of opportunities through this program to practice different ideas and practice communication styles.
Yeah, I have a whole community to to practice with. Like my community includes our students, and but for people who are not scientists, I'll say my mom. She's always curious about like she will randomly ask me, so tell me what are you doing in the UK, and so I try to explain to her, because I feel it's easier when people and to talk to people who understand the science, but it becomes difficult to people who they're just enthusiastic, but they're not, they don't necessarily understand the science. So I would say I have lots of people to practice with. And like I said, we do this workshop. So for me, it's a space to practice, because when we started doing the workshops, I just knew, I think I had just started hearing about mCDR and OAE. I think it was after the first, the other year's OSM 2024. That's when was my first actual exposure to ocean alkalinity enhancement work, and with time, with reading, and now this training, I think it will really change how I deliver the workshops.
Yeah, probably most frequently my partner, my wife, what did you do today? Those sort of conversations. And I think they're important. I'll give you a funny anecdote. She's currently writing a children's book, and the protagonist is doing a school project about the ocean. And so at one point, the words carbon sequestration did make it into the book and in a draft. So at least she heard me one time. I know that. I think those types of chats are pretty cool. And just a way to talk about the things that you're working on in like a non-pressurized scenario. And then typically the people that care about you then want to ask questions, and they want to know more, and it's just a genuine conversation. So I would say that.
It's interesting. My conversations about my work and my and the topic are obviously similar. My partner or friends, and I feel under so much more pressure with them than with anyone else, and I also get terribly impatient. And I'm like, I don't want to underestimate what they're capable of understanding, so I don't want to oversimplify things. But then it's I never quite find the right middle ground. I'm wondering if you mentioned earlier that it's important to know who your audience is and what they know and where they're coming from. But I guess I'm wondering, after this training, we talked about the car analogy. How would you now, in simple terms, describe and explain ocean alkalinity enhancement to your partner, to a child, to someone who knows very little or very much about the oceans? There's a lot of different audiences.
Do you want to do it together?
Try me. I know nothing. Let's test it.
Yeah. I would start with the first sentence. I would say, ocean alkalinity enhancement is a climate change mitigation technique that is currently being evaluated and researched. So I'll start there.
I find, I think I'll simplify it further, because I'm probably speaking to my child, and I'll just say it's a way of, it's a method that is used to solve a problem that is affecting the world.
All right, I'll try to split the difference a little
There
bit.
you go.
I would say ocean alkalinity enhancement is a way of taking advantage of the chemistry of carbon in the ocean to store more of it there.
I thought we were going to build like a Lego set. Yeah. No, I liked it.
It's like that game, you know, the game where I don't know if you guys play this, but in Germany we have this game where someone starts with a sentence and then you pass it on, they have to draw it, then you fold away the sentence and the next person has to write the sentence of the picture that they saw, and then, you know.
I clearly didn't communicate my approach here, so.
Maybe we can try again.
No.
Need more practice. Next workshop.
I think Abigail finished it with the chemistry. Yeah, I think we just need more time to practice because we, especially using the big words and and like you said, understanding our audience. Probably like if someone is not has like for our case, if someone has not reached high school, they don't know what chemistry is. so it's it needs more. It just needs practice.
It sounds like really good advice, and I'm just, in recognition that you're communication leaders in this field, I want to know, like, what is one piece of advice that you would give? This podcast is reaching a lot of folks in the field. What would you advise them to do? What's one thing that you learned from this program that they should know?
I would say jump into it. Jump into the communication. It's hard. You're going to mess it up. But just having the opportunity to practice, like at the workshop that we had, talking to people from different sectors with different backgrounds, it's really the best way to figure out how to talk about things. I don't think there's any replacement for just practicing it. So talk to people about it. Talk to more people about your work. Talk to more people about the science. Just talk to people. So,
yeah, I agree with you. Like one thing I had when I was joining the program, and I think I also spoke about it with the experts I was working with. I had a lot of fear talking about this. Complex terms like ocean alkalinity enhancement to people who are not necessarily scientists. And I think it's one thing, it's very important to, first of all, understand the level of the person you're talking to, and also try to explain what you're explaining in a simple term. And sometimes that person can be a policymaker, or it can be a community member, or it can be a fellow scientist. But the point is, it's very important as scientists to be able to explain what we are doing. And the only way to explain, that's the only way we can make a difference. Because if we just keep on making science that people don't understand, it does not have impact. It's just data.
Well said. Maybe two things. Slow down. Yeah, so that was something that resonated with me. Just to take the time, take a deep breath, and just meet the moment, be present. Maybe be yourself too. Yeah, just be confident in who you are. I think that sense of being genuine is really like a shared human thing, and so then that creates a connection or foundation. And then, don't be afraid to blunder. That was something that came out of the. Like make a mistake. Okay. Yeah, sorry, it's like chess terminology. The experts had a panel, and one of the questions was like, explain a time like you made a mistake or got really caught up in a communication scenario, let's say, and they were very transparent about that, and I thought that was really meaningful, sharing those experiences, and so that's what I would say.
Mm. Yeah, it's like a level of vulnerability as
exactly.
well, right?
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
There's also something Cohen said about listening. It's important to also listen. That's a good way to be able to communicate better and we should. And also, it also helps us not to make assumptions that or this person probably knows this much, but it helps us, communicate better.
And I think also I just want to add, like, one of the things from the workshop was that we had to own our expertise, maybe in ways that we weren't fully comfortable with, in order to be able to have effective conversations. I felt like a lot of us as scientists were afraid to step too far out of our comfort zone, to talk about things that we don't have specific expertise on. But we are the experts. And when you're trying to communicate, share what you know, even if it's not 100% certain. Share what you know and just kind of own it. Be the expert, be the knowledgeable person, and let people ask you questions, even if it's a little uncomfortable.
Wonderful. That's a very positive and encouraging note to end on. The hour kind of flew by, but thank you all so much for taking the time to join us. It's been really fun. I could keep talking for a long time. I have a lot more questions for you, but we'll take that over the beer and
sure. That sounds good.
The peanuts that are sitting there that I'm like so hungry.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to join on this journey that you're on, to be amongst such great communicators and to be here as host. And for everybody listening, for all of you listeners, you'll have Will back next episode, so please stay tuned.
As we said last time, Will be back.
Will be back.
Danny got caught up on that.
I did. Yeah. Thanks for the repeat.
Thanks
thank
for
you so
having us.
much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
It's been fun.
us.
Fantastic.